Today I want to answer so many questions. Lots of people asking me about my parenting, about my foster journey, about my adoption journey, about where I come from, about my single, about how I cook, about what I do. And today I would like to answer as many questions as I can, for so many of you have asked me before. So you get to know a little bit about my life and about my journey as well. But also just, people ask questions at all times. And here's what I've come to believe. There's no stupid question. They are all genuinely important. So, no matter how simple, that's how we learn. That's how we get to know. As a foster parent, that's how I really learned to be a dad. Where I did not understand, I asked sometimes I feel I was like, that was a dumb question, but there was always an answer. And I was like, I should not be afraid to ask. So I get to be asked at a grocery store, at church, online, lots of questions. And so bear with me as I go through each one of them. I might not answer all the questions, but I'll try to do the best I can to answer most of them. So here we go. Why do kids wear glasses? Why do kids wear glasses? Well, for privacy. Basically, as a foster parent, I'm required to keep the privacy of the children. And most time, just this part, because that's how most people are identified. When I look in your eyes, I get to know who you are. So it's part of what I'm required, and it is a policy, and we can get in trouble if we expose the kids' eyes, unless they're adopted or they are 18. They ever have a right to do whatever they want. But also, if the parental rights have been terminated, and they're okay, yeah, you can ask the kid, hey, would you like to be in the picture? Would you like to wear glasses? And most of the time, it's okay. But it all has to be approved by the state or the agency that licenses what I get to do. Next question. Why do kids go back to their parents? Well, why do kids go back to their parents? That's a good question. Here's what I can explain. Foster care means I'm only a foster dad for a time being, meaning this child is coming into foster care or into the government hands so the parents can do whatever they need to do. If they have issues with drugs, so they can overcome that. If they have a mental problem, so they can go to the hospital. If the domestic abuse, so they can all do whatever they need to do so they can have their kids back. Or sometimes the death of their parents. When a parent dies and they have nowhere to go, they come into foster care, and as they find their biological or next of kin, then they are able to give them back. But usually that's why we are called foster parents, for the time being. So that's why it's important that kids go back. My whole goal is I can help more kids if their parents really take their kids back. There are some situations where kids cannot go back, where abuse is so bad, or there's no one to really take them back. All the parents have tried and have failed. In that case, they stay in the system until when they're 18 years old, or they get adopted, or they go to the next of kin, meaning grandparents or another relatives. That is how foster care works. I like that question. Third question, are you single by choice? Single by choice, let's see. Well, yes and no. Yes, I would love to be married for sure. But also, I wanted to be a dad, and I didn't want the culture or, they dictate you have to be married to be a dad. And I was like, no, I can be a dad while I'm waiting. Yes, I would like to be married one time. But for now, truly my joy is to be a foster dad and to do it in every way, shape, form I can. And the other part is I'm content. It's not like I'm like, whoa, Peter, I wish I was. Yeah, I really would like to get married. But being a parent is really cool, but I'm also content. That's key. I'm content. That means I am surviving. Just okay. Next question. Why mostly boys? Well, why mostly boys? That's a good reason as well. Mostly boys because it's a little easy for me as a guy. I feel like with girls, it comes with lots of the do's and don'ts, and I feel I can be myself or I can be at ease if they're boys. But I've come to learn, it really doesn't matter if it's boy or girl. Now I've had 4 girls, I feel like it's the same, So that was just my first preference. Like, I'll only do boys because I can help boys, or I relate more to boys than I do with girls. But I've come to find out that that's not the case. That I am a dad to both. And I'll take boys and girls now. See, go in and then your eyes open and you can do it all. Why girls? Yeah, I take girls. Now I have girls. You've seen me. My daughter, I actually have 2, so I've come to learn to do that as well. So it is a joy and it's fun to be a dad to both boys and girls. Okay, what do I do? What do I do? Here's what I do the most. I'm a full-time dad. Seriously, I would like to foster as many kids as I can. And also, I am big on advocating for children to make sure that the 500,000 kids in foster care here in the United States can have a place to belong, can have parents, can have someone to love on them and make sure that they're okay. So that's what I do. The other part I do, I flip houses. I buy old homes and then I make them new and I sell them or I rent them. The other parts I get to do, 60 or 40% of my time, I get to speak on behalf of children, both international and here in the United States. So if you want someone to come and speak at your church, at your event, at your dinner, at fundraising, I am here. It's a way that really helps me provide for my family. So that's what I do, always. Advocating for children in my home or outside my home. Next question, do your kids want a mom? My kids want a mom. Well, I've had 32 kids. I've never had one say, I wish we had a mom. You know why? Because they've always had a mom, but they never had a dad. So having a dad, I think it's cool. So meaning 80% of foster parents are moms, 30% are single moms. So you can imagine the ratio of moms to dads, so small. So I think most kids are looking for a dad or long for a dad. So having a dad, I think that's all they need. So they've never asked to have a mom. The other part is most dads have taken their moms away. So I think maybe sometimes they're afraid that if they get a mom, that they will lose me in some way. So maybe that's why they don't want a mom. Why foster white children? I love this one. Why foster white children? So here's how I do, and here's what I signed up for. I signed up to be a foster dad to all children. It doesn't matter what color, where they come from, all children. And here's the thing I can really explain to you. Children don't come in the foster care for good reasons. They always come for bad reasons. So for me, I signed up to say, if I have space, I'll take whoever needs help. And most of my kids have come from the hospital, from the police, or sometimes they've been sleeping in an office somewhere or in the car and they need a home. So when they call and say, hey, do you have a room or can you take in a child? I always say yes. I never ask, what race? As I said, all kids are vulnerable. It doesn't matter where they come from. The other part too that determines that is where we live. If you live in a predominantly white county or white state, yeah, of course, most of the kids who in the foster care are white kids. You'd be surprised. Absolutely. That's really true. But also the other part is it doesn't matter which child comes into care. They're all literally there for life and death. So for me, I signed up to take any child is who I signed up for. Next question, explain your job as a foster dad. My job as a foster dad. Well, my job is to truly be, you are a full-time dad. In other words, you are responsible for the child. Legally, when they get sick, I'm the one who has to take them to the hospital. I'm the one who has to get sent the paperwork. Schooling, they have to go to school. That is my job, to make sure that they are well fed and also they are living in a good condition. That is my responsibility. Literally, they are my children. My job or my responsibility is to be fully a dad as though they were mine. But here's the kicker. Most things, let's say when it comes to surgery or comes to travel somewhere else, I have to ask permission from the state to allow me to do some things. So everything else I can do, but when it comes to do things that entail their life or that could alter their lives, I have to ask that state to give me the permission to do. Some things like hair, cutting my kids' hair, that I cannot do. That has to be truly authorized by their biological parents. No matter if they're in jail, whatever they are, they always be the one to authorize. Why? Because hair comes with culture, tribe, and religion. So that's why it's really important to ask a few questions. I like your question for sure. Okay, are you going to adapt? Absolutely. Of course, but here's what I would advise. Never come to be a foster parent or into foster care with the hope or with the idea that you're there to adoption. You will always go wrong. Here's why. Because kids always go back to their parents, or they go to the next of kin. So when you come and you're determined that your job or what you want is to adapt, that can be really hard. So I adopted Anthony, but he was my 11th child. So out of 11 kids, Anthony is the one I could only adopt. And I've had 32 kids. So that means all the other 31, they either go back home or they are reunified with some kind of a kinship or grandparents. So you cannot come in saying, I want to adopt. That means I would have been shredded into pieces 32 times. See? So only for adoption. And then if they're available, sure. Like right now, if my kids can't go back, yes, I'm going to adopt them, you know? So for me, the whole goal is to adapt. And if they cannot go back home, I want to be their forever family. Good question. How do you handle challenging foster children? How do I handle? Well, every child who comes in the foster care has trauma. You know, every one of them. So somehow to be a parent and expect my kids not to have trauma, that would be wrong. So you always know every child in the foster care has trauma. Any child who loses their parents will have trauma. So that is key. That every kid in foster care truly comes with trauma, or along the way, it's gonna come along the way. So for me, all I have to do with is to be trauma informed. If I can learn about trauma, that really helps me on how best I can be a parent. The other part for me is I also grew up from abusive family, you know, through bad challenge. So I have gone through all the trauma most kids have gone through. So I'm able to relate and I'm able to really help them because I was one of them. So the things that we get to see most time and the things that are bothering them, usually it's the undercurrent or something deeper that is causing that. Lying, for example. Well, are they lying? Well, they're lying for a reason underneath why they are telling you the lie. Hoarding food. Are they really stealing food? No. There's a reason why they cannot trust that there will be food tomorrow. So they go keep it for the next day. So you see, trauma informed. The more you're informed, the more you're able to truly help the children. Yes, there are challenges, but we can help kids. I was one of them, but someone truly loved me. How do you balance your personal life and fostering parenting? My personal life, that's a tough one. It's a tough one, why? Because 99.99999 it's about your kids. But I get to learn that my cup has to be full in order to help my kids. So here's what helps me. Kids go to daycare, so that gives me a time to work out, run, or meet a friend for coffee. Kids go to school. Yes, while they're at school, I get to do 1, 2, 3, 4 that I can take care of myself, you know? Have time alone as a dad and learn and study and do things that I love to do, like biking, jogging, and going to the gym. So yes, you have to take care of yourself in order to truly be full and be able to be a dad. Has any foster children left a lasting impression? Absolutely. Every child that comes in my home, I mean, no matter what they've gone through, they always leave really an impression in an amazing way that I can never explain. So here's an example. There's some kids I've fostered, but I'm still in touch with them because I go to be friends with their families. So see, so not only did I foster, but somehow I gain family, you know? Then there are those who really have difficulty and they have been put in, you know, in hospital, but to know that that kid is not in the place you wish them to, but they're in a place where they're going to be helped at least, you know. So yes, it truly leaves an impression in so many ways. What advice would you give to someone considering fostering or parenting? Well, as I said, fostering. To be a foster, there's one thing you really have to know. One, it's gonna break your heart. But also to know that that's what you signed up for. To understand what does foster mean. It means I am there for a short time to help this child. Short term can be 4 years, by the way, or 5 years. But I'm just there to help the parents. So when they're ready, they can have their kids back. That is key. The other part is you have to learn about trauma. You can't just take in a child because fostering is really literally parenting out of the box. So you cannot use how you're raised or how your life was in order to parent your kids, or how you parented your children, biological parent. It's not the same way you get to parent foster kids. It's so different. So you have to learn on really how to remove yourself and think outside the box in order to be a parent to foster kid. In that way, you be the best foster parent you can be. The other part is rally around other foster parents. That will help you, you know, because sometimes my kid is going through an issue that the other one is not going through. And the more we learn from each other, the better we become as foster parents. How do you cope with saying goodbye to foster children? Yes, that is really hard. I can honestly say I was trained to be a foster parent, but that part, no one trained me, and it's the hardest. But it's hardest because we get attached. And some people say, that's why I don't want to foster, because I don't want to get attached. And I'm like, well, Peter is not a robot or a stone. I get attached. But those attachments are the best tools to be there for our children, because that's what they're looking for. Think about, you've been unwanted, rejected. When it comes to really bonding, it's really not easy. But when we can normalize this for these kids, they get to know how emotionally we get attached to them and how we get to love them. And it's okay to let them go, because that's the whole real reason. And here's a question for you. For every friend you have, did you ever see them before you became friends and say, hey, I want to be your friend, but could you tell me how long you're going to be here? No, we just fall in love with people and then they go the next month, the next year. But we stay in touch, or they get to really change our lives. That's the same way with fostering. You get to know, I'm going to impact this child and advocate for this child. But at some point, they're gonna go and you're gonna heal. You're gonna walk through that. I can't say you just walk on and take another child. No, you take a break, you recoup, For me, the greatest thing I've done is to stay in touch with these kids. Especially, I work so hard to have the relation with their parents, so I don't feel like they are yanked and gone, but we still get to see each other. Most of my kids, they come and stay for the weekend, or we get to see them, or we visit them, or we make phone calls, or we do FaceTime. Yes, that really helps on the saying goodbye. What are some rewards for fostering parenting? Oh gosh, rewards, it's hard to explain rewards. Here's what I've learned as foster care. You're not just doing them a favor or doing it for them, but for you as well. Look, I never had a family. Now I have a family. That they really helped me to be the best parent I can be, or to be the best human I can be. I didn't know I was patient. Well, I wasn't, but they've taught me how to, I didn't know what loving unconditional was, but now I get to learn to love unconditional because they've taught me, But also the other part is I've went through hell, but in some way, yes, they triggered some of my issues, but they helped me also overcome them with time, because I couldn't just say, man, this I cannot do. But along the way, I've come to heal as well. So you see, it's both ends, both sides. Yes, both sides. How do you help foster children feel secure in their new home? How do I help them? So here's what I do. It's crazy what I get to do. So for me, for every child I get, they have to buy their own beddings and what they need on their walls, because I want them to feel that that is their home. The best way to make someone feel is to bring their own taste, their own color, their own idea in their bedroom, and that really makes them feel at home. Food, I just don't go buy food and say, you eat. No, I ask, what food you like? Or when you're growing up, or when you're with your parents, what things they make for you that you love the most or you miss the most? I get to involve them, so they feel they are part of what they get to do. The other part, I love plants, so much that every time I get a new child, they have to go get a plant to put in their room so they can nurture, so they feel they are part of the family. So those are the things that I get to really do. Involve them in everything I do, not just my decision, but their decisions matter as well. That has been really key as well. When they're worried, to validate what they're feeling, or when they don't feel comfortable in your home, when you cook food and they don't like it, to validate their feeling rather than say, hey, you don't do that in my home. No, you say, I really understand. Help me to do better. And I promise I will. That really helps. Let's see, what's the next question? How do you stay informed about foster children's needs? Oh, how do you stay? Well, the kids really educate you. I have a toddler right now, but she's about to be 2 years. So every time I have to learn how they're growing. I've got a 6 and 8. Now they're in elementary school, in grade 1 and grade 2. So you get informed because they're growing with you, But the other part, I have to also do research. In the foster care or as a foster parent, you're required to have training throughout the year, at least 2 or 3. And that's why they renew your license to make sure that you're still up to date. You're still up to date to new CPR, new medication, new everything, As I said, they are my kids 100%. So every development is my concern, and I have to learn on how best to really help them. My daughter is 8, but now I'm learning how teen girls, how can I help my daughter as a teenager? So I'm learning. How has fostering changed your perspective on parenting? Yes. It's easy, especially for you who are single, to look at kids doing things or see a parent, you say, why would she do that? Or why can't she take care of the child? You get on the plane and the kid is crying and you say, what's wrong with that mother? Well, man, once you have a child, you get to understand truly, that the child has their own brain. When they decide to do things, they do them. There's nothing I can do to stop them, but they do. Anyway, so you get to learn, you get to have the perspective of the parents. The other part too, kids have their own mind, especially for us who have kids in foster care, that they will do things seriously that are out of this place. And to know that is not, I can't change it, but really to come alongside and embrace who they are. We are at the grocery store and they throw their tantrum and they go off, to know that I have to compose myself and truly be there for that child because that child needs me. The other thing I've come to learn, at first I used to think I don't want people to judge me because my kids are behaving this way at the restaurant, but you get to a point where you say, look, you can judge me all you want, but these are my kids and I own the issues that you get to see. That I think I've come to really learn about kids and about parents. We get frustrated too. Or sometimes our kids really go on a switch or put on a switch or go to a whole different way that I have no control and there was no warning what's gonna happen, but I have to embrace it when it comes. That's something I've learned about parenting. But also, I used to care what people think about me. Now I don't really care because you get to know your kids come first and you need them, not to worry about what people say and think. Now I'm more we'll survive. How do you ensure foster children get the resources they need? We make sure we advocate for them through our agency and through their county as well. We get to advocate for them. And it's not just me in their lives. There's Lightem of Guardian. There are social workers. So there are so many people looking at my kids, hovering around me like a helicopter. Well, not really. But they are there to really make sure that I'm doing the right thing and the kids are growing and meeting their milestones. It's really important. How do you handle difference in religion or culture beliefs? Oh, yes. Can you imagine? I'm from Africa. These kids are Americans. Our culture difference is like day and night, but we get to really do it. I am fostering American kids. I don't expect them to be African or understand where I come from. They are American kids, and to value where they come from. So here's a good rule I like about foster care. They say, when you have children, they have to follow your family rule or your family, whatever you do. If I go to church, that my kids will go to church. If I go do events, they are my kids. They come alongside and they are part of my being. Me, my values, my principles, my religion, my culture, they have to be part of that. But I have to honor their culture as well, So you embrace them with their culture, but you raise them within your culture, So for example, I've had a Native American kid, I make sure he's here, his events that he gets to attend, to honor things that he's come from, So those are really important to the kids, that we are not yanking them and yanking everything about them, but to value their tradition and bring them and mirror them or marry them with mine and becomes one. They know about me, my culture, my values, my religion, my principles, whatever, but I get to bring theirs as well. That's how it works. And if they're little, you don't really have to worry. But as they're older, yes, you get to teach them about their culture. How do you celebrate milestones with folks? Oh, milestones, birthdays. Oh, they're very, very important. We get to do that all the time, Oh, they join a team and they score. They join a club. They join a ballet. We get to truly document them, celebrate them, and also send those celebrations to their bio parents if you're in touch with them. If they see them every week, send those milestones to their kids. Hang them in their room, in your house, so they get to see the trophies and the things and the certificates they have earned. That's really key and it's important. It helps them really value themselves. How do you involve families and friends in your How do I involve friends and families? Well, again, it's my family. They are my family. They're part of everything about me. That I get to bring them when we visit friends. They get to babysit. They get to have grandparents who are my parents. So every family member becomes their member. My brother lives here in Atlanta, but they call him uncle and his kids, Yes, they get to see my family, that they become part of your family. But two, you become part of their family. Like some of my kids, we get to visit grandparents. So I get to go there and love on them, but also I feel like I am part of their family. So we blend everything together, we blend. The one thing we cannot do is we cannot leave our kids with our families. They have to be licensed and they have to be authorized and they have to be done background check on them in order to do so. So yes, we can blend. Yes, we can be part of that. But the one key thing, how long can they stay? If they came to live with us, how long can they stay? If my kids went to visit, they can only stay for 24 hours. That's it, nothing more. But we can visit and they can be part of the family. Have you considered adopting foster children? Have I considered? Yes, every day. I consider every child I have, yes. I consider that maybe one day they'll stay, So you leave both worlds of saying, I am preparing them so they can go back home, but at the same time knowing one day they might not. I have kids who came for just, 4 weeks. It's been almost 3 years here. How do you balance that? So when they came, I had to give in 110. To this day, I have to give 110. Either they go or they stay. But it's always my joy that I would like to have a big family. So that's why I created Now I'm Known Foundation. That's why, really, so I can help more kids and be there for other kids, to give room. I would like to have teens, or even my dream is to have a teen mom. So I get to help her so she can stay with her little one and go to school. Man, like a grandpa, you know what I mean? But that's what I would like to really do. I would like to have a big house so I can help so many kids. Sometimes these kids go, and once they've been at home, a few years later, they come back in the system. But sometimes I wish I could take them with me, So that is what I could answer. Hopefully it made sense. If it didn't make sense, well, we can do that. We can do more again. But that was really a few questions that I have for you that I get to be asked. Hope you enjoyed, and you can ask me more questions.